Do you like unhinged battle series? Did DBZ and JoJo not have enough fan service for you? Then you might want to try Ikkitousen. But I'm not talking about that right now. That's for After Dark. This is a story by the author Oh Great. A martial arts high school story with plenty of drama, fistfights, and more than a little gooner bait. Published by Ultra Jump from October 1997 to August 2010. And concluding in 136 chapters across 22 volumes, then this 24-episode series by Madhouse, the same studio that made One Punch Man Season 1, Frieren, Trigun, Black Lagoon, and Overlord, from April to September of 2004, would air. This is Tenjou Tenge. Quick tangent about the name, it uses the kanji for sky, heaven, and God twice, followed by the characters for above and below. You can literally translate the name as Heaven Above, Heaven Below, which is a really lofty name for a high school battle series. As you can tell from the intro, the mains of the series are Soichiro Nagi, the battle junkie trope, Aya Natsume, his overly obsessive love interest, Masataka Takayanagi, the seemingly normal one, Maya Natsume, the older sister who's anything but normal, and Bob Makihara, the American mixed blood from South Africa. I shit you not, that's how he's written. Starting off with a narration from Masataka before he meets up with Maya, who's the captain of their club. Apparently Aya's supposed to be joining them, and at the same time Soichiro and Bob show up to start shit, only to immediately write off Masataka and Maya. They will regret that later. Violent these thugs may be, but moral also, at least when they think you're weak. At the dojo, we are privy to Aya's sword skill and Masataka going full simp. Meanwhile, Soichiro and Bob are attempting to assert dominance. Some other students show up and ask Maya to do something about the violent idiots running rampant.
Bob, there's a weird little girl here who talks like a grandpa wanting to fight me. What do you think that I should do about this?
I don't know.
Transformation scene by Maya and a follow-up.
Bob, if that weird little girl suddenly turns into the kind of stacked, voluptuous chick you'd see working in a sketchy nightclub, what should I do?
Don't know.
And of course, Maya sends Soichiro flying, directly into the dojo showers where Aya is. She leaves Masataka to stop Bob, but shows up too late to prevent Aya from being the kind of feral that only Maya understands. Also, from the way Soichiro reacts, he's a cherry boy. Day 2 starts normal enough until Aya shows up to be yandere. Maya and Aya have an exchange to explain to us why Aya has gone all in on the blonde guy, followed by Masataka and Bob having a talk. It's mostly world building and motivations. Soichiro takes a swing at Masataka and we're shown that his normal image is deceptive. He then beats the shit out of Soichiro. Then he really beats the shit out of Soichiro. Gotta humble the protag before the story can move forward, because it's time for some Soichiro backstory. Also, it seems something called the Executive Council has marked Soichiro and Bob for a beating, of which we're briefly introduced to Emi Isuzu. Later that night, Bob is having some introspection with his waifu Chiaki when Soichiro literally kicks in the door. One of the guys sent to punish the freshman shows up to torch Bob's bike. Then the guys realize Chiaki is probably in danger. Asshole is targeting a non-combatant. You can understand their anger. Aya gets a sick feeling, but her intuition seems spot on. The asshole sent after the protags has already gotten to Chiaki. Aya rushes to the scene as the mains get beat down with Maya's narration about Aya. Plenty more exposition and world building, then some real story development happens. The mains were supposed to have been chased out of the school, but instead joined Maya's club. Asshole takes a shot at Maya and gets humiliated with a twig. To deal with the threat that is the Executive Council, the Trub holds a training camp at the Natsume house. Well, estate. There's some woo-woo kung fu talk and a bit of world building that tells us Masataka's older brother is the president of the Executive Council, and it sounds like he has beef with one Shin Natsume. Then the asshole finally gets a proper beatdown by Japan's favorite combat sport. The mains go bowling, of all things, as an alternate form of training. It's mostly for more personal exposition and setup for the next major encounter. Emi calls a new character to join the punishment, and an organized attack on the mains takes place. Emi goes after Maya, Staff Guy goes after Aya, and the Chaff go after the others. But Masataka plays it cool and tells the freshmen to go find the Natsumes while he deals with the trash mobs. Soichiro encounters the wrestler, and the war zone kicks off on all fronts. It looks like the executive squad is getting beaten back until Masataka's brother, Mitsuomi, shows up. Bob does about as well as you'd expect for episode 8, but he's outclassed by a lot. Mitsuomi drops some lore and tries to recruit Bob, but the waifu knocks some sense into him. So Mitsuomi beats down Bob, Masataka, and then Soichiro, and follows it up with involving Maya in what turns out to be a lore dump and introduction to the greater plot. Backstory that's something of a dark power struggle between clans. Tenjou Tenge is that awkward halfway point between Dragon Ball, Kenichi, and Ikkitousen. It's got that kung fu magic speak to explain the supernatural powers. It's got the training with the experts trope. It's got quite a bit of fan service. The characters are well realized, if kind of goofy. Example, Maya. She chooses to spend her time in chibi form because it's part of her training. And to talk about Bob again, most of the characters refer to him as the foreigner, which he is. Despite having a Japanese-sounding last name, he's not Japanese at all. There really isn't much of an explanation behind the mismatch of his traits. His father is a US Navyman, he's from South Africa, and he uses the capoeira fighting style from Brazil. But his character isn't actually a trope. He has a lot of depth and is capable of pretty deep introspection, which is a lot more than can be said for some of the other characters in the series. Like Masataka, whose character seems surprisingly shallow, at least in the anime. In the manga, both Bob and Masataka get very extensive arcs, and lots of character development. But even though the anime tries to lean into that JoJo, Fist of the North Star, Bakido battle manga feel, it doesn't or can't fully commit to it. With 24 episodes plus one OVA as a 2004 anime, it doesn't embrace the Eshi tag to really lean into the fan service, but also doesn't bother to try and tone down the violence either. This puts it in the weird R17+ rating for violence and profanity. It's that awkward middle ground between PG-13 and R+, which you get for mild nudity. This contrasts quite heavily with the manga, which is significantly more bloody and violent and has a lot more sexual content. If Madhouse leaned into the source material more and commit to the R+ rating, the show would have been a better product, even if it had reduced reach. And at the time, it really was trying to compete in a market saturated with more popular options, airing alongside history's strongest disciple Kenichi, Katekyo Hitman Reborn, and Naruto. As a battle series, it was swimming up a river against stronger swimmers. Also, another problem is that it had limited space to tell the story. The anime focuses entirely on the story setup arc, while the manga continues on with the power struggle aspect and puts greater importance on the overarching plot of why Soichiro is so important. The topic is touched on in the anime, but it's used more as a vehicle to explain why he's unexpectedly dangerous rather than having any greater point to it. It also suffers from being overly dramatic, at least when it's not involving Bunshichi.
How much longer are you gonna tail me with that camera? If you keep this up, I'm gonna have to start billing you for royalties.
Look, big tits!
Huh? Big tits where?
The older high schoolers, because this is a high school story, talk like stage actors. It's well written to the point that it comes off as unnatural. And this is most obvious in the middle of the season when Maya goes off in a multi-episode flashback explaining what led to the current events. But that's not to say it's a bad story. It's actually very good. Just way too uncanny valley. If you were to like seinen and battle manga series with lots of gratuitous violence and nudity, you'll like the manga more than the show. Watching it can be fun to a degree, but it's really not nearly as good as O Great's original work. I mean, it's the same guy who created Air Gear and drew the Bakemonogatari manga. He's got incredible style and clearly knows what he's doing with it. And you can't tell me he doesn't. If I was to recommend this series to someone, I'd recommend the manga before the anime, and I gotta wonder what Madhouse was thinking when they were making it. Because prior to Tenjou Tenge, Madhouse made Paranoia Agent, which was a lot better, and airing at about the same time but running longer. They also made Monster, which was insanely popular. And soon after Tenjou Tenge was done airing, they made Beck, Strawberry 100%, and Hellsing Ultimate, which only furthers the question of what were they thinking when they were making Tenjou Tenge, because clearly they had the staff and skill to make it shine, but did they have the resources? It really could have been incredible. But I've rambled enough about this. I am the NBT. This has been the Noble Weeaboo. Like or don't, sub or don't. And thank you for watching. Being over 20 years old now, I can see Tenjou Tenge getting a reboot that follows the story from start to end like Fruits Basket did. At present, I think there's a serious gap in the market for seinen battle series, which is why we're getting a Fist of the North Star reboot after 40 years. But the demand isn't there for a large resurgence of the genre. Martial arts just aren't as marketable as hyper fantasy or superheroes. But if it really leaned into the crazy and naked of the manga, embraces the R+, it would get popular by default of absurdity.